something that he wouldn't, you know. I lived with him till my wife died in 1958, his mother, which we had been married for 27 years.
What could possibly drive the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, to divorce his stunning wife Priscilla in 1973? While many have speculated, the truth remains elusive until now. In a rare final conversation with his father, Vernon Presley, the reason behind Elvis's heartbreaking split from Priscilla is revealed in a way no one could have anticipated. Brace yourself for a shocking truth that has remained hidden in the shadows for decades. Through Vernon Presley's eyes, we get an exclusive glimpse into the tumultuous relationship that defined one of the most famous couples of all time. His perspective sheds new light on the deeply personal struggles that led to their separation, an angle we've never heard before. If Elvis were here, he'd say, "Thank you very much for subscribing. Are you a real fan? Let's find out." Elvis Presley's meteoric rise to fame was nothing short of extraordinary. By the time he was drafted into the Army in 1958, he had already transformed from a small-town boy into an international superstar. The world adored him, and yet amid the flashing lights of fame, a more personal journey was beginning, one that would forever change his life. It was during his military service in Germany that Elvis met a young Priscilla Presley, a beautiful dark-haired 14-year-old with a quiet, mysterious allure that caught the eye of the king. Their age gap, Elvis being 10 years older, was a topic of concern, but it was their magnetic connection that drew them closer. Despite the fact that Priscilla was still a teenager and Elvis was at the peak of his fame, they began a deep, passionate relationship that defied the odds. For Elvis, it seemed to be more than just a casual fling. He became captivated by Priscilla's innocence and beauty. For Priscilla, this was a dream come true. She was in love with the man she had admired from afar, and he had swept her off her feet. In 1963, after much insistence from Elvis, Priscilla moved to Memphis, where their relationship flourished. They lived in Graceland, his iconic mansion, where the couple's intimate bond grew deeper. Their life together was a mix of glamour and seclusion, as Elvis's fame kept them largely isolated from the outside world. On May 1st, 1967, in a ceremony that was witnessed by only a handful of close friends and family, Elvis Presley married Priscilla Presley. The wedding was modest by celebrity standards, yet still a celebration of their love. A love that, at the time, seemed to promise eternal happiness. At this point, many thought they were the perfect couple, the epitome of rock and roll royalty. But little did anyone know, the very things that brought them together would eventually pull them apart. Their marriage, however, would prove to be more complicated than they had anticipated. As Elvis's fame skyrocketed, so did the pressures of maintaining a relationship under the constant glare of the public eye. Although their bond had started out as a whirlwind romance, fame and all the complexities that came with it was starting to take its toll on the marriage. Even as they continued to enjoy lavish holidays and glamorous parties, the cracks in their relationship were beginning to show. It was only a matter of time before those cracks would deepen into an irreparable split. Despite the outward appearance of a glamorous fairy tale romance, the pressures that came with Elvis Presley's fame slowly eroded the foundation of his marriage to Priscilla. Behind the curtains of Graceland, the reality of their life together was far from idyllic. One of the first major strains on the marriage was Elvis's infidelity. From the very beginning, the king of rock and roll's charismatic nature and intense fame attracted many admirers, especially women. In the early years of their marriage, Priscilla tried to be understanding. She knew that Elvis was constantly surrounded by fans and other women who threw themselves at him. She also knew that Elvis had never been particularly good at being faithful, even before their marriage. But she had hoped that once they were together, things would settle down and their relationship would become more secure. However, as Elvis's fame continued to grow, so did his attraction to other women. Priscilla, while she never made her frustrations public, became deeply aware of Elvis's affairs. She tried to remain loyal not only to him but to the family they were building together, including their daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, who was born in 1968. But despite her efforts, the emotional distance between them began to grow. Priscilla's own emotional needs went unmet for long stretches of time. While Elvis was off touring or working on his movie projects, Priscilla found herself increasingly lonely. The The weight of his constant infidelities, coupled with his obsession with his career and social life, left her feeling isolated. In the early 1970s, Priscilla found herself drawn into an affair with Mike Stone, a karate instructor who worked closely with Elvis. The affair, while brief, was significant in its impact on the marriage. It marked a pivotal turning point that irrevocably changed the dynamics between the couple. Priscilla's affair was not just a response to the emotional neglect she felt, it was a breaking point. When Elvis found out about Priscilla's affair, his reaction was a mixture of disbelief and anger. At first, he seemed to be more hurt than enraged. The shock of her betrayal was a blow that forced him to confront the deeper issues within their marriage, issues that had been bubbling under the surface for years. Elvis, despite all his fame and accomplishments, seemed to struggle with how to process his feelings of abandonment and betrayal. He had, in a way, come to expect that the women around him would fall into his orbit, but when it was Priscilla, his wife, it felt like the ultimate act of rejection. In the aftermath of Priscilla's affair, Elvis found himself torn between love and hurt. He seemed to retreat into himself, withdrawing from the world, including Priscilla. This marked the beginning of their physical separation. Though they continued to live under the same roof, the emotional distance between them became painfully apparent. The marriage, once filled with passion and connection, now felt like a fragile shell of what it had been. Both Elvis and Priscilla knew that the marriage was slipping away, and neither seemed able to stop it. Despite this, the couple tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy for the sake of their daughter, Lisa Marie. Elvis, despite his emotional turmoil, continued to support his family financially and remained involved in Lisa Marie's life. However, the cracks in their relationship were now undeniable. A permanent separation seemed inevitable. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, was one of the few people who had a clear and candid view of his son's personal struggles. For years, he had watched his son's meteoric rise to fame, and as Elvis's career flourished, so did the weight of the challenges he faced in his personal life. In their final conversations before his death, Vernon revealed his own perspective on why Elvis's marriage to Priscilla ultimately ended. According to Vernon, the root cause of the divorce wasn't just infidelity or Priscilla's affair. The real issue, he believed, was Elvis's inability to fully embrace the concept of commitment, both in his marriage and in his life. Vernon pointed to Elvis's restless nature, his constant yearning for excitement, novelty, and the thrill of the spotlight. This need for constant stimulation, he argued, was at odds with the stability that marriage required. Elvis, despite his deep love for Priscilla, was not someone who could easily settle into the routine of family life. His fame and the accompanying pressures created an environment where domestic life felt stifling to him. Elvis was always seeking something more, something bigger, Vernon said. The fame, the power, the attention, it was like a drug for him. He didn't know how to stop, how to just be. Vernon noted that Elvis's celebrity status played a significant role in the emotional turmoil he faced. The constant media attention, the screaming fans, and the endless demands of his career created an unrelenting cycle that left little room for introspection or peace. The public image of Elvis, the rock star who had it all, masked the deep loneliness he often felt behind the scenes. Vernon also pointed out that Elvis struggled with the pressures of being an idol to millions, but only feeling truly understood by a select few. Vernon further speculated that Elvis's dependence on prescription drugs, which had begun to escalate in the early 1970s, was exacerbating the issues within his marriage. The drugs, which Elvis used to cope with the demands of his lifestyle and his emotional pain, only served to deepen his sense of isolation and make him less present with Priscilla. At times, Vernon believed that Elvis's drug use distorted his perception of reality, making it harder for him to understand the full impact of his actions on those closest to him. From Vernon's perspective, the marriage between Elvis and Priscilla had been doomed from the start due to these fundamental differences. He understood that Elvis loved Priscilla, but he also saw the internal conflict within his son. Elvis's emotional needs were never fully met by anyone, including Priscilla, and this left both of them feeling hollow in different ways. Ultimately, Vernon saw the divorce as an inevitable outcome of a union that had been shaped by forces far beyond their control: fame, addiction, and an insatiable longing for something that was always just out of reach. By 1973, the cracks in Elvis and Priscilla's marriage had grown so wide that there was little left to salvage. They officially separated, and soon after they filed for divorce. The decision, though heartbreaking, came as no surprise to those who had been close to the couple. The emotional distance that had been building for years was finally too much to overcome. The formal divorce settlement was a significant financial transaction, but it also outlined the arrangement for the shared custody of their daughter, Lisa Marie. Both Elvis and Priscilla were deeply committed to their daughter, and they agreed to an arrangement where they would both play active roles in her life. Elvis, despite his own tumultuous emotions, remained involved in Lisa Marie's upbringing, and Priscilla made sure she was always there to guide their daughter through the complexities of growing up in the spotlight. In the aftermath of the divorce, the public was quick to judge, but behind the scenes, Elvis and Priscilla remained cordial. In fact, the divorce did not mark the end of their emotional connection. Instead, it marked a new chapter of mutual respect. They still cared deeply for each other, and this was evident in the way they interacted after the separation. One of the most touching moments post-divorce was Elvis's performance of "I Will Always Love You" during one of his concerts. The song, written by Dolly Parton, became a heartfelt tribute to Priscilla, a reflection of the enduring love they shared despite their personal struggles. Elvis's raw emotion as he sang the song left no doubt that, although their marriage had ended, his love and respect for Priscilla had not. Though they were no longer married, Elvis and Priscilla continued to be a team when it came to their daughter. They were still united in their desire to see Lisa Marie thrive, and their friendship, albeit complicated, remained a source of stability in an otherwise unstable time for both of them. Their ability to put aside their differences for the sake of their daughter became one of the most enduring aspects of their relationship after the divorce. Even in the years following the divorce, Elvis and Priscilla found ways to support one another. They remained close friends, often meeting privately to discuss family matters, and they shared the occasional laugh over memories from their time together. It was a testament to the depth of their bond. Though the romance had faded, the friendship had not. As much as their marriage had been marked by turbulence, Elvis and Priscilla's post-divorce relationship revealed an undeniable truth. Love, in its many forms, endures. When Elvis and Priscilla finally divorced in 1973, the end of their marriage was not as much of a shock to those closest to them as it was to the general public. The tumultuous years leading up to their separation had already set the stage for this moment. By the time they had filed for divorce, the cracks in their relationship had deepened beyond repair, and both of them seemed to understand that their personal happiness could no longer be found within the confines of their marriage. The formal divorce proceedings were rather straightforward, and Priscilla received a substantial financial settlement, including spousal and child support. Though the financial terms of the divorce were carefully negotiated, the most important arrangement made between the two was the custody of their daughter, Lisa Marie Presley. Both Elvis and Priscilla were determined to maintain a meaningful presence in their daughter's life, despite the emotional pain they were each experiencing. While Elvis spent his time performing and working on various projects, Priscilla focused on raising Lisa Marie, trying her best to shield her from the turmoil that had engulfed their family. However, the legalities of the divorce didn't erase the deep emotional bond that still existed between Elvis and Priscilla. While they no longer shared the same home or the same bed, they continued to have an amicable relationship that was grounded in mutual respect and love for their daughter. In many ways, their divorce marked the beginning of a new phase of their connection. It was no longer based on the romantic love that had initially brought them together, but rather on an understanding that, despite their differences, they would always remain family. Elvis's emotional state post-divorce was deeply conflicted. On the one hand, he had always loved Priscilla, and their shared memories were not easily forgotten. On the other hand, Elvis had always been a man who struggled with his emotions, especially when it came to the end of a relationship as significant as the one he had with Priscilla. He was often seen at his shows with a kind of melancholy that contrasted with his usual stage presence. Despite his fame and adoration from fans around the world, the sense of personal loss he felt was profound. For Priscilla, the aftermath of the divorce was equally difficult, but her approach to coping with the situation was more pragmatic. She focused her energy on being a mother to Lisa Marie and kept a low profile, trying to stay out of the public eye. She made it clear that she still cared for Elvis, but she also knew that the most important thing was to create a stable, nurturing environment for their daughter. Over time, Priscilla would emerge as a stronger, more self-assured woman, and she would eventually play a key role in preserving Elvis's legacy after his death. Despite the end of their marriage, Elvis and Priscilla's relationship continued to evolve. They kept in touch, especially when it came to their daughter. Over the years, their interactions became less about unresolved pain and more about a shared history history and a mutual respect for one another. They had a bond that transcended their failed marriage, and that was something neither of them could ever deny. In the years that followed their divorce, Elvis's life continued to spiral into chaos. His career, while still successful, began to show signs of wear and tear. His drug addiction worsened, and he became more erratic in his personal and professional life. Yet, despite his personal struggles, Priscilla never stopped caring for him. She continued to keep a watchful eye on his well-being, and she made it a point to be there when he needed her the most. It was a delicate balance, as Priscilla still harbored a love for Elvis, but she also had to protect herself and their daughter from the destructive forces that surrounded him. During this time, Priscilla took on a more prominent role in managing Elvis's affairs. She became an important figure in his life once more. Not as his wife, but as a trusted confidant and advisor. Priscilla's involvement in Elvis's career and personal matters helped him stay grounded in ways that few others could. She helped manage his finances, his personal relationships, and even his business dealings to some extent. It was a unique partnership, one that showed how even after their marriage had ended, they still relied on each other. Elvis's deteriorating health and his ongoing struggles with substance abuse weighed heavily on both Priscilla and those closest to him. Yet despite the tension and worry surrounding his life, there were still moments when Priscilla could see glimpses of the man she had fallen in love with. She remembered the man who had been charming, brilliant, and kind, even if those moments were fleeting. In those rare moments, Priscilla found herself hoping that Elvis could overcome his demons and return to the person he once was. Tragically, that never happened. Elvis Presley passed away on August 16, 1977 at the age of 42, leaving behind a legacy that was as complicated as his life had been. His death was sudden, and it sent shockwaves through the world. Fans mourned the loss of the king, and those who had known him personally were left to grapple with their own feelings of grief and loss. In the wake of Elvis's death, Priscilla became one of the most prominent figures in preserving his legacy. As the mother of his only child, Lisa Marie, and as his former wife, she took it upon herself to ensure that Elvis's memory would live on for generations to come. Priscilla played a crucial role in the management of Graceland, which became a major tourist attraction after Elvis's death. She worked tirelessly to maintain the property and to protect it from becoming a mere relic of the past. Graceland would go on to become a symbol of Elvis's legacy, and Priscilla was key to ensuring that it remained a place where fans could pay tribute to the man who had changed music history. Priscilla also worked to ensure that Elvis's music continued to be celebrated and remembered. She oversaw the release of new albums, merchandise, and documentaries, always ensuring that the memory of Elvis Presley stayed alive in the hearts of his fans. Her commitment to preserving his legacy was unwavering, and she took great pride in knowing that her daughter Lisa Marie was carrying on his legacy in her own way. The relationship between Elvis and Priscilla Presley was never simple, but it was undeniably profound. They were a couple who had experienced the highest highs and the lowest lows, but through it all, they remained connected. Their love story, though short-lived as a marriage, was far from one of bitterness or regret. Instead, it was a testament to the complexities of human relationships and the ability to endure even after romantic love has faded. In their later years after the divorce, Elvis and Priscilla found peace in their mutual respect for one another and their shared commitment to their daughter, Lisa Marie. The emotional bond between them never fully dissipated even after their separation. Their divorce did not mark the end of their connection, but rather a new chapter in their lives, one in which they became a family in a different way. They remained steadfastly united in their love for Lisa Marie, and that shared goal became the foundation of their post-divorce friendship. Even after Elvis's death, Priscilla continued to honor the relationship they had and the love they shared, despite the personal and public challenges that had torn them apart. She remained a protector of his legacy, working tirelessly to ensure that Elvis's contributions to music and culture would never be forgotten. Their story is one of deep love, painful loss, and ultimate reconciliation. Elvis and Priscilla were not just husband and wife, they were two individuals who had been through incredible emotional turmoil together, and through it all, they continued to care for each other. Their relationship was complicated, but it was also profound, marked by a lasting bond that neither time nor distance could break. Elvis and Priscilla Presley's story is a reminder that love is not always easy, and it doesn't always follow the paths we expect it to. But sometimes love is about finding peace and understanding. even after the heartache. And in the case of Elvis and Priscilla, that love, though tested and torn apart by the weight of fame, infidelity, and personal struggles, remained enduring and true until the end of Elvis's life and beyond.